Why are you wearing a tent?
Just to protest against the obscene idea that wealth can basically steal freedoms away from us.
Soon as one change happens, it runs away with itself, and before you know it, we're looking back going, gosh, there was this time when we used to be able to do these things that now seem completely inaccessible.
Camping out on Dartmoor, walking on Dartmoor, enjoying Dartmoor is free. It's one of the few free things we have left, and it's just completely wrong that neo-feudalism could overturn what's essentially a right that's well established. And I just reject the inequality of it.
Out on the wily, windy moors, would roll and fall in green. They're not just the words to Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights, but they're memories thousands of people have made wild camping here on Dartmoor. But now that's all at risk. Dartmoor used to be the only place in England and Wales where you had the right to wild camp. That was until a land-owning hedge fund manager challenged the right in court, where a judge found no such right existed.
Alexander and Diana Darwell, and this is their estate, the 4,000-acre Blatchford estate that we are on here. We'll be going on a walk up onto the moor to a place where we, a week ago, had a right to wild camp and no longer do.
Now, landowners in Dartmoor have agreed to permit people to wild camp on a smaller area than where they could before.
There has been a deal cobbled together and forced upon the National Park Authority by Dartmoor's biggest landowners, which basically trades off what the public had as rights to wild camp for a system of permissive access, permissive camping rights, and in return for public money. And that's just not good enough. That's not what we want. We want our rights back.
People are predictably furious. So, thousands of them have marched onto the hedge fund manager's estate in protest.
Any excuse to annoy the aristocracy.
Tim, you're wearing a tent. Why are you wearing a tent?
Just to protest against the obscene idea that wealth can basically steal freedoms away from us.
Dartmoor is, well, our last place we were able to wild camp here in England, and to have that taken away is frankly disgusting by a greedy landowner who has over 4,000 acres of land, and he's decided no, he would rather, release his pheasants on that land. Exactly. I mean, he's a classic villain, really, isn't he, in terms of his policies and what he stands for.
And again, if you look on the guy's website, again, if you go into sport, then all it is, it's just about killing animals. It just seems entirely wrong that the world has gone mad that sport is murder and recreation doesn't include getting out under the stars.
Camping out on Dartmoor, walking on Dartmoor, enjoying Dartmoor is free. It's one of the few free things we have left. Anybody can access this, anybody can enjoy it. And it's just completely wrong that neo-feudalism could overturn what's essentially a right that's well established. And I just reject the inequality of it.
This country's never had a revolution, and it's never had the opportunity that most countries have had to reform their constitution, which pretty much every other country has had. So we've got pretty backwards land ownership, and and it's important that she should have the right to toddle.
Got to stop, even though it's Dartmoor, it's just a small part. You've got to stop. You've got to make your voice heard, because change. Soon as one change happens, it runs away with itself, and before you know it, we're looking back going, gosh, there was this time when we used to be able to do these things that now seem completely inaccessible.
As someone who loves to wild camp myself, I think it's so important to connect with nature and completely, especially for the next generation. I think how are you meant to care about the ecological crisis and the climate crisis going on if you just don't have access to the outdoors? It's completely important to connect with it on an emotional level and be able to get out and camp.
I won't say who it is. Someone I know well, shall we say, came home from school one day, very, very upset. He'd been, had a bit of trouble with a girlfriend or something. He disappeared up onto the moor behind where we lived. And I worried a bit, and I thought, no, he knows what he's doing. Came back next day, completely refreshed person, spent a night out of the moor, not a long way from Stormore, as it happens, and he came back, a fully refreshed person. So that's kind of important, that sort of thing. Yeah, Dartmoor does that for you.
And it's just nothing but pure greed of someone who just is using their power to and use it against the people. And I think, really, I'm hoping it's a bit of a Pyrrhic win. I think people here we're showing that people care, and I think there could be an overhaul in the right to roam here in the UK. I think we deserve it. We're only allowed access over 8% of land in England through footpaths and Dartmoor, and that's being stripped away before our very eyes. I think we definitely need that right, and I'm here to protect it.
The organisers of the march weren't only calling on humans to protect Dartmoor.
Because what the landowners have done is so counter to the spirit of Dartmoor, we're here today to summon up a spirit to defend Dartmoor and its wild camping rights. That spirit, the spirit of Old Crochan, is one who has an ancient history on Dartmoor, with stories told about him down through the centuries.
This is Old Crochan. Old Crochan is the ancient protector of Dartmoor. He's supposed to have driven away a wealthy landowner who tried to enclose areas of Dartmoor by ripping out his pocket. That might sound like Old Crochan ripped the landowner's bum out, but he just ruined him financially. So he's a good person to call for help. There was a palpable sense of anger at the injustice of the revocation of the right to wild camp. But this was mixed by people's joy at being part of nature, of being out with their friends and family in a truly beautiful part of the world.
And this staggering display that is happening here now will, in its quiet way, be part of history. So what I'd like to do now, just to check that we can hear your voices, is I'll say something and you say it back to me with full voice. It's very simple. We dedicate this walk to the land.
We dedicate this walk to the land.
The response is inspiring, but it would be naive to assume that the fight back will be easy.
So be it. You know, we need political action. We need MPs, politicians, some of whom I think have been here today. We've seen people from various parties coming along to this, and I hope they take that message home that there's a huge amount of public support for keeping wild camping a right on Dartmoor, and more than that, a greater right to roam across England.
Do you have hope?
Huge hope, enormous hope. I mean, how can you not have hope when there's 3,000 people who've just turned out on a remote part of Dartmoor who all agree that this is what needs to happen? There's changes coming. This is historic. This is absolutely like the next chapter in the history of access rights in this country.
And yeah, it's quite sad that has happened, and it's quite sad to see that since then other landlords are seeing this as an opportunity to, you know, gain financially from the Dartmoor National Park Trust. They're now seeking them to pay for them for us to use this land, and as it was before. And I hope that all of that can change, and it cannot be a financial burden for an organisation that has already had its funding cut. That we're already seeing the centre in Princetown potentially being closed. You know, where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the taxpayer, and we all contribute in our own way.
The taxpayers here, aren't they?
So it'd be great to see that changed for the benefit of the taxpayer, for the benefit of everyone in the future who can learn from this land, and the young people to come.
Do you have hope?
You have to have hope. You have to have hope, but I do think that the legal system is a system that can be bought out by the highest bidder, and I think that's what's happened in this situation. And I don't think that, as we are that highest bidder. So instead we have to contribute with our voices and our presence, and stand here together, and at the next thing and sign the petitions until things can change back. And this turnout today, this is something that can give you hope.